We're just seeing a main phase, activate Warden of the Inner Sky, keeping it on top, which we did last time as well,
So
I
it's gotta be a
believe.
land.
Did we bottom last time?
I don't know.
I feel like we should have if we weren't going to do anything this turn other
Right.
than just activate Warden of the Inner Sky.
Right, because you wouldn't top knowing that it's a 4-drop that you can't cast.
Certainly,
right?
yeah. So we must have bottomed. I just missed that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't top, you would bottom. Obviously.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah. I think, you and I both probably would top or bottom depending on context and, are willing to top sometimes and bottom other times.
Yeah, so that enchantment's a really good play.
Scrying is mechanic in
love
Magic the
removal.
Gathering.
Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Lucky Paper Radio. My name is Andy, and I am once again not here with my trusty co-host Anthony, who is still recovering from the novel coronavirus. Not so novel, is what I say. It's my unique take on it. Instead, I'm joined in studio by one former guest of Lucky Paper Radio and one new guest of Lucky Paper Radio. Though you've been on the feed, if not in guest form, I'm here in my basement with Bones, Judge Bones, just Judge Bones. There's no other way to make that name more complete. And also Cade from Recross the Paths. Cade and Bones, welcome to Lucky Paper Radio.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a treat to be here.
I had a whole thing planned. I wanted Anthony to be on this episode too. I got a fourth microphone. I got a fourth set of headphones. I was going to do the Newlyweds game. We were going to have a competition to see which of us was the more adorable best friend couple in the Cube content creation world. But it's going to have to wait for another time because my better half is under the weather. Boys, we just got back from Cube for a Cause, Part 3, Spring-Summer 2025. It was your second time judging a Cube for a Cause. You didn't judge the first one, but you did judge the second one.
That's right.
And Kate, it was your first time ever playing in an entire Cube event, right? Because you've only judged in the past.
That's right. Yeah, top to bottom, I'm usually on staff first, and I get to play maybe a cube or two. I find my drafting opportunities later, but yeah, this is the first one to just get to run all the way through.
And we established that, Bones, you have never just gone to a Cube event and played Magic.
That's right. Yeah.
Bones has never played cube.
And we were like, do you want to? And you were like,
Maybe.
Just completely non-committal.
I enjoy judging. I can't lose any games, but I get to watch so many games of Cube. I get to enjoy it with none of the downsides.
Well, we're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have someone that is that committed to judging and is not that interested in playing because we need you. We need you to run these events.
Most of the times when I judge, I'll have a Cube in the event, and then I get lots of good data because I can talk to all 8 players at once.
Yeah.
And watch all 8 players and see all the different perspectives.
Yeah, I regret that I didn't get to talk to more of the players of my cubes this weekend because I was on coverage the whole time. A couple of people went out of their way to come and tell me something, but like somebody asked in the Cube Talk Discord, like, oh, how was Wilderness Reclamation this weekend? And I was like, I don't know.
It wasn't on camera, so...
I didn't see it on camera, and no one sought me out to tell me how it was, so I do not know, unfortunately.
Well, and you had a very full weekend on coverage.
I did. So by the time this episode comes out, certainly, because this is not coming out next week, but the week after, we will have the videos for this stream on the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, Lucky Paper. And it was a lot. I was kind of, loosely speaking, in charge of the commentary team, and I was working with Chris, NYCMTG, who did all the production, all of the everything.
An amazing job.
Chris did an incredible job. If you're out there and you're running your own Cube event and you think you might want to do coverage, you should contact Chris, fly them out, pay them whatever they need to be paid. When Scott emailed me 5 months ago and was like, do you want to do coverage for this event? And, this person's going to do all the tech. I was like, this is going to be really bad if Chris is not good at their job. Or if Chris is even just okay at their job, but not excellent at their job. This could be really rough. And turns out Chris is exceedingly excellent at their job. So the stream came out great. The video quality was excellent. And I was sort of in charge of all right, who's going to be on camera talking about the cubes and what will the formats be? How will we talk about them? And decided to run things very casually. I was I was aiming for, I do watch any competitive Super Smash Bros. I know you both, you play a little bit.
I make kind of an annual habit of watching the combo contests that get published each year.
Sure.
Only a little bit.
Yeah, there's an event called Summit or Smash Summit, which is an invitational. It's only 32 players. It sadly no longer is run. A couple years ago was their last one, but it ran every year for a long time. And I think it was renowned for having like the best production of any professional Smash event because it was only 32 players in the same room, basically. There was a separate little room they'd go off in to actually play the games, but then everyone would be hanging out in this like big lounge, basically, this big like living room. And the way they set up the commentary was like just a bunch of big couches, and like people would just be sitting on them, and they'd like cycle in and out, and people would come by and, you know, talk about their last match, just, you know, impromptu without any foresight or planning. And so I kind of envisioned, you know, that sort of casual vibe. And I thought, the vibe is that casual, I can be on commentary for the entire time. I won't get too tired. And I managed it, but it was still more exhausting than I thought, just to be constantly observed. I don't know how these people that are like Twitch streamers do it. Not able to just like pick your nose or whatever because some people are watching you. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you do just exude charisma, of course, but to
That's
do it
very
for,
kind of you.
But to do it for like, you know, what do you think, for 2 rounds in the day? That's still
Both the streams ran from like 9:30 to 7.
Yeah.
So we're talking 9-10 hour days basically of just sitting on coverage, unless I am in the bathroom. I was on coverage basically.
That's the sort of thing that people will go, oh yeah, I could definitely do that. And then the first time you sit down and realize it's only been 2.5 hours and I have been just talking.
Yeah, it was a lot, but I'm really proud of it too. So I think people should go check it out. And it is a vibe. Patrick was in the booth for 2 of the 4 streams. And Patrick, you know, if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard one of Patrick's many guest appearances. You have a rough sense of the vibe Patrick brings. Now just imagine him unedited. And I think honestly, with the extra, like Patrick loves being the center of attention. Patrick loves, you know, putting on a little show. That's his favorite thing to do, which I say with no derogatory tinge at all. I think it's an adorable trait of Patrick's. Having Twitch chat there in real time, I think makes him feel extra like he's putting on a show. So, yeah, if you want to see Patrick in rare form and me trying to, you know, wrangle him to actually keep a Magic stream somewhat on topic, you should check out the coverage. Also, you can see Ollie Beeks on coverage and Jesse Robkin in the other 2 slots. So, yeah, a lot of good cubes, a lot of good games, and I think some interesting conversation to be had.
You can watch me draft on there too.
Yeah, you were drafting in one of the slots in which Patrick was in the booth with me, and halfway through your draft, I was like, you know, Patrick, Cade might maybe want to like show this draft to like his kids someday, or like, you know, maybe send it to his wife or something. And of course, everything that's coming out of your mouth right now is completely antithetical to Cade's values and, you know, and personality. So good job on sort of tainting that.
No, I told my wife that morning, I was like, hey, I'm on draft coverage today. And she goes, oh, great. Give me the link for the show. And I said, I will not.
She would have had a lot of questions.
Yeah, she would have learned a lot about...
Would have been fun.
Would have learned a lot about, I think, throat singing was a high topic of conversation during that one.
Right, yeah. When you were drafting, I actually, like, Parker had the mic, and so it was Parker and Patrick.
That's
right.
right.
I love Parker. Parker maybe not quite assertive enough to wrangle Patrick fully, and so might have gotten fully off the rails there. Anyway, we're at the back of that event. Cade, you top 8'd, so you are 100% top 8. You only top 8 Cube events, nothing else.
I can retire happy.
Yeah, there you go. And Judge Bones, you had a great time head judging, I take it?
I did. It was a really good event. Working with Scott was great as always, and we had some hurdles that we overcame. Even with scaling up from the last one, it was like 60 players 6 months ago, and this time was 80 to 90 players per round. Worked out.
That's kind of a wild growth rate on that, too.
I think the attempt was to double.
Almost got there.
And
yeah.
we almost got there.
Yeah, I was saying to Scott that if you continue to double every time in, 4 or 5 years, we have half the population of Earth.
That's right.
That cube for a cause.
Well, good luck finding that, even double what we currently have at that kind of space in New York City. In Brooklyn. Boy, I'm going to get crushed for that. Everything northeast to me is the same.
But Brooklyn is still in New York City, certainly. It's one of the 5 boroughs.
Yes.
So you're good. You're good to call it New York City. Just don't call it Manhattan.
Right.
It ain't that. Cade, I talked about some topics for us to possibly get into, and we're a little bit off kilter because Anthony's not here to join us, but I think we should still make our best effort at covering one of the topics you've brought to the table.
For sure. I think to jump into it, Bones and I, our birthdays are close to each other, so we determined that one of the best ways to celebrate that is by cubing. Both of us like doing that. I have a lot less time to do so. Bones is really good at organizing things, unsurprisingly, making them happen. So we determined to combine our birthday celebrations to make a little cube event and invite people. We ended up with about 20 people over the course of the day to fire 3 different pods twice. So just to make a day of the event. And since that time, I've been thinking so much about how do you cultivate events, or how do you cultivate cube experiences where the experience itself is more valuable than the outcomes? That's kind of the overarching thing that's been percolating.
And you mean the magic outcomes, like...
Yes. Yeah, it's like the results, your stats on the page, which I know easy for me to say after this last weekend. But
Yeah, that was very fun. I had a great time, top aided, made it to the semifinals. Easy peasy.
just like you do. But I would hope that the experience, and I think it would be just as fun, even if I didn't. And so thinking about what that actually looks like to craft that. It's like one of the things that really spurned that thought, I don't remember where you actually grabbed the idea, Bones, was the charms for your bracelet.
So the original inspiration was from Dan in Madison, who gave me a friendship bracelet at one of the CubeCons. And then immediately after that CubeCon at Spirit Halloween, they had skull bracelets. And I waited until like November, and then everything at Spirit Halloween goes 50 to 80% off. And I bought a pack of skull bracelets.
Oh, you didn't even make them. They came fully assembled.
Hold on, I'm telling you the full story.
Okay. I was about to get a little offended.
I'm sorry. I bought a pack of skull bracelets, and then at the next CubeCon, I gave those bracelets out to some people as friendship bracelets, but they're all bones. It's just all skulls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to make another set of friendship bracelets, but instead of buying them from Spirit Halloween this time, we're going to do our own friendship bracelets. So my wife has a friendship bracelet making station thing.
What is that?
It's the cord and the beads and like the filler beads and the letter beads and all the different
Just
colors.
a box that has all the materials in it.
It's a tackle box of different beads.
When you said a station, I pictured something that like held the string for you and like you could...
that's awesome.
I don't know.
I'm sure that exists, but that's not what she has. And then I was like, oh, what would be great is if we had beads from the event instead of a trophy pin.
Mm-hmm.
It's beads. And then the size of beads, like the quantity that we ordered, was such that I could give all my players a gold skull bead for every match win.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're a very successful draft over the weekend, you have a bunch of skull beads. And like, even if you only win a couple, you have like 2 or 3 skulls, which is great. And also you get to like collect your opponent's skulls because you're winning.
That's pretty sick.
To be clear, they are also metal, so they're like weighted gold. It's like they're way heavier than everything else in the bag.
So the idea is you gave out the beads over the course of the weekend at the Goblin Gathering,
Yes.
and then at the end of the weekend, everyone had a friendship bracelet making ceremony where you got to take your winnings and turn it into a bracelet.
I was doing all the scorekeeping all weekend and putting in results, and as I'm getting results, I'm giving them the skull beads for their eventual bracelet, and they're just keeping the skull beads on hand. And then I also have just regular skulls for people who don't win or don't have enough and want to fill out the bracelet. You can sell a skull bracelet because that's my brand.
My brand is Bones.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm handing out these beads over the weekend. Everybody's got it, like the string that you can put them on, and I've got the letters all set out. I have not given anyone any explicit instructions except you're going to make a bracelet at the end with the beads.
Mm-hmm.
And I turn around as I'm drafting. I'm playing the games of my Ancient Desert, and 5 people are huddled around the bracelet making station in the middle of making bracelets, and I didn't have to do any prompting or explanation or anything.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's bracelet making station there. It's like the stupid thing is escaping my mind. There's a thing. It's like, build something that has a clear purposeful use for that purpose. I don't know.
Field of Dreams.
That's not the Field of Dreams. It's not Field of They Will Come, and it's not Occam's Razor, and it's not Law of the Instrument. It's somewhere in this pantheon of things. Okay. Or it could be one of these examples of things I just completely make something up and think it's a real thing.
Oh, it's
and
like a teacup.
And I don't know where it came from, like the bird walk situation, which still not sure how that bursts forth from my brain. Anyway,
so yeah, it was great. Everybody made bracelets. I only won 3 times, so mine says Cube Goblin and it has 3 gold skulls in it. And that was like the point of the event for a lot of them. Like, we're just going to hang out all day and play Cube. You can't really lose. And I fed them, and we had cupcakes and we had sandwiches, and it was a good time. And then I also realized that there is one person who did not get a single match win, and therefore no gold skull beads. And I really should have thought of that ahead of time.
What to do if someone falls into that situation?
Yeah, had like a brass skull or a black skull or something that was like something special for them because they did get a unique record.
What about like broken bones? Like, what if it was like if it was like a big, tibia,
now
but shattered,
Yeah. So that's what Cade's referring to. We had a good time making bracelets.
Certainly the fun of people just jumping in and filling that in themselves. Like, there's a bracelet station. I've been given this prize. Let's make something out of it. But also it made every match matter more than the whole tournament, more than the whole pod. Like, there was something on the line every time. I think that speaks to some of the, I don't know. I've been thinking something about the like micro versus macro rewards. You know, like video games do this really well, where like every coin you get in a Mario game or every kill you get in a Call of Duty game or whatever, that you get these little bitty clicks of value. And then you think in most real world scenarios, you don't get a lot of that. It's like if you're folding your clothes, you don't get a little plus 100 every time you finish folding a shirt or whatever. Your rewards are, well, I have my shirt folded. Or like at your job, you don't get these micro rewards until your paycheck. And like these are these larger scale things. And the same with like, I think pins have captured that a lot for people because that means your whole pod has a little prize at the end of it. But then having these even smaller end goals of like, I can win something small here that pushes me on to the next thing. And the next part's less important because I have something to work toward right here.
It's funny, when you mentioned this topic, this is not what I thought, because to me, this is still tied to your Magic record in some way. I thought you were going to be talking more broadly about like atmosphere and just kind of other unrelated things that don't have anything to do with Magic that make sharing social space with people for 3 to 4 hours, you know, something that is desirable. But this is kind of somewhere in between where it's like, it is somehow related to the Magic, but it's not like the only goal is to like be the supreme winner of everything.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of the germination of the idea. I wouldn't say this is like the end goal of, I just want to encourage people to give people skull beads or whatever, though that was kind of a cool outlet. But I think considering more broadly, like, how do you make the Cube experience welcoming? How do you make it something that is not tied to the end result? I know you just went to the Inland Northwest Cube Fest. And they did some really cool things with how that event was run that didn't highlight results. Like there was no standings.
Yeah. And also, like, Jane just gave out trophies for other stuff. And I think, importantly, did not say preemptively that that was going to happen. This is something I actually struggle with. I'm curious to get both of your opinions on how do you feel about a thing, a prize, recognition, some sort of material manifestation for doing poorly, about this pin you give to the person that doesn't win any matches. Because I find it always often goes two ways. One way is you accidentally make it too appealing, and then people that are close are just like, well, I concede, I don't want to win because I want to win the thing that you get if you don't win any matches, which kind of defeats the point. Or it just ends up not actually feeling good for the person at all. It just feels like, oh, cool, thanks for the like scarlet letter that says that I suck. Which, do you feel like there's another possible outcome of that can work?
I think critically, the point that you said, you don't tell anyone that this is going to happen, and then you make it very cool for the person who did the worst. They didn't get to win at all. So they should get something cool, and then that can be their highlight of the day. Maybe they really liked a deck and it didn't do well. I've had that. I've had O3 decks that I really liked, and I still had a good time even though I didn't win.
The biggest pop at Inland Northwest Cube Fest for sure was for the person that did not win a single match all weekend and was given a trophy to that end.
Yeah.
The whole room went crazy. And they had a great big smile on their face collecting that trophy. They were just, pumped, which I think is a testament to that person just having a good attitude. I don't think that's necessarily saying that structure is going to work for everybody. I think there's entirely an outcome where like Jane goes to present that trophy and the person just like, turns into a little ball and is like, no one look at me. But this person was like, all about it. Was just like, woohoo, I suck. And just like, grabbed the trophy and everyone went nuts.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with that idea of if people know, it feels a little different. So I'm curious to see, I presume Inland Northwest Cube Fest may happen again. So I'd be curious to see when they do that again, like if they end up doing the same sort of structure on that. I remember like a youth camp years and years ago where there was this award they would give out for folks that was like highlighting your humility in a way, which was kind of funny.
Here's a big medal to how humble you are.
Right. It was kind of this like, you got a special t-shirt or whatever. I don't remember. But the punchline being that then as soon as people knew that was there, well, then it was this, like, everybody was then working toward, well, how do I show that I'm this person? And
how do I be performatively humble when instead of, like, being actually humble, which is the whole point? This kind of touches on your devil went down to Georgia theory.
That's right.
Do you want to share that with the pod?
Yeah, please.
It all loops together. There's a theory that everyone thinks the devil's portion of the devil went down to Georgia is better than Johnny's portion.
Well, hold on. Everyone is in, like, us as the audience listening to the song. We're like, but wait a minute, the devil's portion was better? Or in the kayfabe of the song, the audience of the showdown?
No. There's no audience of the showdown. Johnny's on a hickory stump.
Okay.
No, the devil's on a hickory stump.
And if you're on a stump, no one else can be around. That's a rule.
Someone's on a hickory stump in a clearing, sawing on a fiddle and playing it hot.
Okay.
And the devil shows up. Boy, let me tell you what. After they play each of their portions, so Johnny's is the chorus. Maybe that's why it gets less appeal. And the devil's has like a cool, unique part of the song. If you believe that the devil did a better job, well, then why did Johnny win and get the golden fiddle? And the theory is that the devil purposely gave him the gold fiddle and say that he won so that he will be filled with the sin of pride and the devil is assured his soul in the end. And then he has the golden
Pride
fiddle.
being a sin, of course.
Right. One of the big 7.
One of the big sins.
And the 7 deadly sins.
One of the greatest sins, very big, huge sin.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone who embodies pride. And as soon as he dies, having this physical reminder of the time he beat the devil, his whole life he's going to have this and he'll never forget. Then when he dies, the devil will get his soul. So that's the fan theory.
I like that theory. Anyway, like that, but for doing really bad at a cube event.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to that end of like, as soon as people know that there's a target, or like, oh, well, then are you throwing games once you're at a certain record to try to get to that end? Or is it like, does that prize feel lesser at that point? I don't know that I have a firm answer on that. As you were following up on, like, was that kind of the point of just give different prizes? I think it's something more about what is the purpose of the event, or like, what do you want players to have happen while they're there? Because mathematically, you are going to have over half of your players with a negative record, right? That's just how it's going to go.
Well, not necessarily. A couple players can have a really negative records, and everyone else can be a little bit positive.
Well, sure. I guess like I guess we should say,
yeah, I'm the worst right now.
No.
That's me being the preemptive, pedantic YouTube commenter. That's like, actually, if you have 3 players with no wins at all, then the other 12 can be all positive records or some stupid shit like that. Shut up! Don't do that. Don't post that.
No, I mean that is true. I think consider like one pod, for example, or like one draft. If you have 8 players, you're going to have 1 3-0, 3 2-1s, 3 1-2s, and 1 0-3, unless you go to time. Or like you have draws. So it's like mathematically, half of your people are going to be losing. I'm using air quotes here. And I guess I don't need air quotes because they're literally losing.
Yeah, that's not a scare quote thing. You lost.
Yeah.
You're a loser.
But then how do you make people not feel that way? Like, how do you not make people go home going, well, that sucks? Especially since, I mean, think about here in Baltimore, or where we just were in Brooklyn, where you have a room full of engaged, awesome players who are working hard to win. Then you don't want people to feel like, well, I couldn't beat some of the best players around, so I must not be very good. It's like, that's kind of the hurdle. That's the thing I've been chewing on of how do you engage with that?
I'm curious because I think the answers are maybe a little different for if you're running a cube event and there is prizing, even if it's just the form of pins, right? We've said on the show before, and I'll say again, that I think the reason pins have been so successful since the second CubeCon when they were first introduced, which, by the way, no one knew that was going to happen at the second CubeCon. It was just like you started finishing your matches and someone walked over and handed you a trophy pin, and you were like, oh, this is a gift, thank you.
Along with a can of Sprecher that was 105% of your
and
daily
there was
value
that.
sugar.
There was that too, for better or worse. But the reason they've been so successful and just so sticky since then is that it's the perfect amount of incentive, right? Like, Magic players, pound for pound, I think, are fundamentally mostly competitive in the sense that they like want to do well, even if they're, the most humble player that is really just like wants to do well for their own self-improvement. Like, there's still, I think, a thread through most Magic players, especially ones invested enough to find themselves at a cube event, that they like care about doing their best and like succeeding in their goals. But I also think a lot of people in the cube world are intentionally avoiding the like grind of competitive Magic. I was talking to Jesse Robkin this weekend, a friend of mine, Jesse, who has played a lot of competitive Magic and done a lot of competitive grinding, and just hearing so many stories of like just how frankly awful it is. Like, it's just straight up not fun. Like, it is just kind of miserable to like have to care that much about, whether you win this or win that, or whether you can afford to like, take a draw here or whatever. Like, just to be playing that game seems so stressful. So I think a lot of us players don't want that. And the perfect balance is like, here's a thing of no monetary value, of like, no transferable value. Like, it just means something to you. And it's just a little tiny thing that you can put in your bag or your play mat or whatever that recognizes that you like did good one time in one draft, right? And that is like the perfect balance, I think, of like reward. Everyone wants a pin, but you're not like devastated if you don't get one. It's just a pin. Like, it's not like, paying out prize packs or whatever, which I think people have more of a feeling about. So anyway, I think at an event where you're doing that, and there's also, just to say, there's no reason you can't have prize pins at your local cube night. And it's something I've actually thought about for my own cubes, like making pins that are specific to the cube. So you could then have the 3-0 for, the Bun Magic Cube or 100 Ornithopters and have that sort of collected on your bag, which I think I've considered. That's which, cool. I'm obviously at the deep end of investment. But you could do this at your local cube night. But most people aren't. So the question is, like, if you're at a big event that people are paying for entry for, there's judges, there's some sort of prize support as sort of, simple as pins might be, how do you encourage people to care about something other than the outcomes of their games in that context, which I think is slightly different from like, how do most people listening that maybe have a local Cube night, how do they make it so that people that come out to their local Cube night and don't win still have a good time? Which I think those are kind of two different questions.
Yeah, and I think the former kind of applies to a very small group of people.
Not a lot of people are in the position to make decisions about, how Cube events are organized. Though I should say, I want more of you. Run more of them, yeah.
Yes, please. The more pressing thing is, what do you do on the Friday night in your local community or on the Monday night in your local community? How do you make that more compelling in a certain way? And not to even suggest that this is a huge problem either. I think as somebody who's judged competitively for a number of years, Bones has judged a number of competitive events over the years, that the competitive environment is so much different in non-Cube spaces. And I can see why that's, like, as Bones has leaned more in toward judging more Cube events than not. And I've still judged more of those where, man, the outcomes matter so much. And that's all you're there for in a lot of cases. Like, yeah, you get to see some friends, but it's like, I'm here to win games. And if I do not win, then the day is shot. I'm going to go get lunch and go home.
Which is funny. I find that is the attitude so often of like, Bosch and Roll, Brian Coble came to Vertex Pittsburgh, at least last year. I assume this year too, I think I saw on Twitter. And I remember him posting on Blue Sky or Twitter about it and just seeing him being like, yep, I'm out for top 8, so just heading home now. And I'm like, no, buddy, no. The point is to play Cube. Like, it's not to be live for top 8. Like, that's not the point.
But it's so hard to distance that from almost every other Magic event.
Right, of course. I mean, he's so used to being like, he's a competitive player. He goes to, eternal events and whatever. And he's like, I'm here to win. And if I'm not going to win, I go home. So I can, It's funny how, like, we all love this game, but that is such a fundamentally different view of Magic to be like, I do this because I'm good at it and I want to win versus I do this because it is fun. And I would choose to do this over anything else if given the option at any moment,
You see that on Cube servers all the time. Whenever we have one of these events coming up, people who have never heard of them will join and be like, what's the prize structure? Like, well,
Exactly.
The prize structure is that you pay
You have 3 hours of good time.
you pay an entry fee and you get to play Cube 2 or 3 times in the same day. And it's guaranteed and you don't have to do any organizing work. And you show up and say what Cube you want to play. And then you play a Cube you want to play. That's the prize.
I mean, I just take for granted how much people have this assumptions from other Magic events.
You don't have to own any cards. You don't have to bring any cards. In fact, don't bring any cards.
It only makes things complicated.
Yeah. You can bring a playmat. Sometimes we'll give you a playmat. You can bring some dice, bring some water. That's it. We're just going to have a good time.
Okay, so the local Cube night then.
Yeah, I think Bones and I were talking about this some before, and the way I was posing the question was, like, how do you design for something like this? And I thought your response was so telling. Do you want to answer that question with your own clarification?
You wrote it down. I can't remember what I said.
Cade tells what Bones said.
So what I asked was, like, how do you design toward this kind of outcome where you want the experience to matter more than the outcome? And the way Bones said it was, you don't design toward this idea, you present toward this idea. That any cube could fit into this space, or any setup of cubes could fit into that, what your goal is, but that it's all in how you carry the evening out. That it's not set up of like, here's your prizes, here's the end. That it's more about just how you talk about the evening, how you set up the environment, how you run things moment to moment. I think, like, for me, then that looks like kind of specifically not asking about records when I'm talking to people, especially like if I'm the Cube owner or if I'm somebody just helping run things, that I like to ask questions that have nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Hey, what was your favorite card you got to play with?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the coolest board state you were part of tonight. Like, whatever end of something like that you're on, you have something that you can talk about that you care about. That has nothing to do with numbers. That's just something you got to do.
I do think that that's largely correct, that the context in which you present the cube to be played is important. But I also think fundamentally there are like different decisions you can make around your cube design that will also impact this, right? Like, I have found that pound for pound, this is not universally true. Some people play 100 Ornithopters and are like, that sucked. I don't want to do it again, which is fine. You're not going to please everybody. But pound for pound, even people that have badly losing records, I find, are often pretty excited at the end because they're like, I got to do this thing. I only got to do it in 3 games over all my matches, but like I got to do this and blah, 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 and explain sort of the weird convoluted thing they got to pull off that they were dreaming about in the draft portion. And I think if you lose after getting to do the thing your deck wants to do, and especially if it's a novel, fun, exciting thing, the average player is more likely to be pretty excited versus like, I lost because I got mana screwed 12 times, right? Like, that's not great. People are not going to be happy about that. Or I lost because my deck literally didn't function, or I like completely misunderstood this environment and like didn't know the stakes or the sort of meta and made a bunch of decisions that in hindsight were like completely wrong. I do think there are ways to actually make losing more fun in the cube design as well.
I agree. I do think, to rebut myself, as quoted by Cade, I do think any cube can be put into a context where it is less about records. But I think context shift cubes have a better chance of having fun moments untied to record than more traditional cubes that have all well-known cards.
Sure.
And you're kind of put mentally into the position of normal Magic or default Magic. And whenever you're playing something, my memory of this is the Ball Pit or 100 Ornithopters, where the context is so different, it kind of breaks up your thinking and your expectations for the evening.
You're also inherently having more novel experiences, and if novelty is like one of the things that's going to bring people joy,
That's
even if
true.
they're on the receiving end of novelty that destroyed them, you know, it's maybe less novel to be like, I lost to Minsk and Boo again, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that maybe that's just not as fun for people.
There's not specific things that cards themselves are capable of, but the way that Mark Rosato describes the psychographics, like Johnny is described as having a deck that Johnny brewed, that Johnny came up with, and if Johnny goes 0-6, but did the thing that the deck was designed to do one time, had a good night. And so, like, maybe there are cards that lean Spike and cards that lean Johnny, and whenever you have a density of cards that lean Johnny, you can have a better time even with losing record.
Yeah, how do you think this all relates with like agency and variance? Because like you said, sometimes you do just get stuck on mana for an evening, and like, does it feel like you had a hand in it, or your opponent just drew all the Moxen and you didn't, or something?
Honestly, I think all of this is like, really comes down to like the vibes of the room. I've had my cubes drafted in lots of different rooms, the same cube, you know, drafted in lots of different rooms with lots of different play groups. And, you know, I think CubeCon is probably the event with the most competitive vibe that a cube of mine has been played in, especially in the earlier years of CubeCon, where maybe people didn't have as much precedent for like what these events looked like. People were sitting down and it was like kind of a serious or a solemn draft, right? And people were like, didn't know each other. They were all strangers. And the idea of sitting down across from a stranger was like, they're your enemy. You're trying to beat them. You know, they're the ones preventing you from potentially getting to top 8 or like, you know, blocking your like match win points. And so I think the vibes are way different there than on the weekly cube night, or like I've said it a couple times on this podcast. One of my favorite drafts ever was a draft of one of my cubes after hours at CubeCon last year with a bunch of buds that were like super tired after a long day of drafting and like delirious because of how tired they were, and were just excited to go into a draft with no expectations of their performance because they were all exhausted and like just sitting down with friends. That kind of energy will forgive so many cube design sins and so many variant sins, because it's just like, who cares? We're all just here to play this stupid game. And I think the real question of like, how do you make a cube experience, a Magic experience, more about things that are not the record, is figuring out how to cultivate that vibe, because it's not easy. It's really difficult to like actually try and create that sort of vibe in your play group. And I talked on the show before about the then 10, now 11-year-old who plays with us on Tuesdays, and you might meet tonight. I believe he'll be there tonight. And one of the things I love about him is that he just brings such a good energy to the table. Like, nobody's going to be a weird, sweaty, try-hard jerk when there's an 11-year-old at the table. It immediately makes the table like that much more fun. It's like a physical reminder of like, we're all this person inside. We all got our inner child here. We're here to like just have a good time, and to like have a literal kid there is like, yeah, that's why we play this game, right? I don't know how to try and make people feel that, especially when you're among people you don't know. Like if it's strangers, or like, you know, you're the new person at a play group, it's really hard to sort of make this culture appear. And even when you do know everybody, like sometimes people had a bad day and they're grumpy, or, you know, whatever. It's like, it's hard to like have any control over that. It does stem from the cumulative humanity of the people in the room, is like this third thing, this vibe that is then a fog that like lays over everything. And I think that is the thing that it determines mostly whether people have a good time or care about the record in that particular evening of the draft.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the phrases I use often when I'm doing opening judge announcements is that your opponent is not your enemy. You can sit down and have a civil game regardless of how you're feeling in that moment, and you don't need to treat them in an untoward way. And I mean, you've talked about this at length with many different people over the years now, right? Of how much just greeting people with a smile and a handshake or whatever you're comfortable with, just bringing people into a space or into a game in an open-handed way that leads to those kind of outcomes. Because if everybody comes in and it's like, all right, so if you win, you get this. It's like, well, no, if that's where you're starting, well, then that's where your focus is.
If you win, you get the satisfaction of winning. Congratulations. Yeah. You know, like the question is, what does everyone else get? And if it is, they had to sit across from you being kind of a unpleasant, sweaty tryhard all night while they were losing, like that's not great.
Well, I have to admit, to air my own dirty laundry, I feel like I'm not a very gracious loser most of the time. I do get...
Hey, buddy. Welcome to the club.
Well, like, I usually have a pretty even keel, and I try to keep a kind demeanor about things, but I'm not good at losing. And one of the things that has helped me bounce back more quickly is at the end of those, when I do lose, is trying to put myself in the shoes of the opponent of like, whatever the cool last thing that they did was that kicked my teeth in. If I can look at that and go, hey, that was a cool thing, and I'm so glad you did that.
Hey, it was so cool when you resolved that spell because I never drew second blue for my counter spell. It was so cool that you did that.
Well, like I think about one of the matches here in the semifinals of the top 8, where I lost to really a critical turn where my opponent had Dark Blast and Liliana the Last Hope to answer 2 1/1s on the turn they needed to.
I heard you just basically got farmed by Dark Blast. That has got to be one of the worst experiences to be on the receiving end of. That is a card I have considered a couple times for cubes and been like, if this card is good, there is almost nothing more miserable.
Yeah, maybe that's a poor example, but for me...
No, it sounds like a perfect example. How did you maintain composure after losing to Dark Blast?
I mean, that was exactly... And shout out to Dom if you're listening. It was so awesome that he got all the way up to the finals and did so well. But it was that moment of like, you needed...
Here's that classic Cade, ungracious loser.
Well, like in the moment, I was like, man, I really want to win. I really want to do well. But then being able to take the moment and go, that was actually really sick. And that moment of being able to answer both of those things, the moment you had to... was that was the turning point of the game. And if you didn't have that there were still outs for me. And so then I can go, that was cool, and I hope that keeps working for you. And it didn't in this case, but then I could be
okay, now a little bit of ungracious losing is coming in. He's like, yeah, and then you got farmed, buddy, so get good.
Got ranched. No, the finals are wild, and having commentated that. But no, just trying to find what's the hook that I can be excited about for you, even though I lost, or even though that's not the thing that I would normally be into.
I wish I was better at modeling the not caring about your record behavior, is how I will put it. Like, I think I've really strived, maybe like you have to like not actually be an ungracious loser through much self-work and like effort, but there's no hiding that like I care about the outcome, that like, the outcome is the thing that is somewhat important to me. Again, not that obviously no prizes at our local cube night, right? But I play Magic partially because I like having a thing to try and get better at. And when I have a night where I feel like am I even any good at this game? Like, it seems like I did everything wrong, or like nothing worked out for me. All my expectations were not met. Like the thing I thought mattered didn't actually matter. It just makes me be like, what am I even doing here? This is so upsetting. I definitely don't think I model the behavior of like not caring about record as much as I wish I did.
Well, because we do care. And as I've kind of framed this whole thought around, as much as I don't want it to matter, it does matter to a degree. Like if you feel like I want to be improving or I want to track how I'm doing, which I know you've moved away from.
If it truly didn't matter, it wouldn't be a game. We wouldn't be playing it.
Right.
Like,
right.
I remember having this conversation a lot back when I was playing Commander, and there was always discussions around like, how do you make Commander fun? And there was always a certain player that was like, I make Commander fun by not caring about whether I win or lose. And that's the absolute worst person to ever have in your Commander pod, because they just take random game actions that have no logic to them, and they don't care if they win or lose, so they don't care if you win or lose either, so there's not like a shared goal. It's like the reason that these kind of fundamentally zero sum, like someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, draws aside, but the reason these things are fun is because we enter into this like social contract where we agree we're going to like try our best and like test our mettle. I gave the comparison of some Commander players being like, we sat down to do like a NASCAR race, and you're like, I'll make it fun, and you drive backwards on the track, like throwing, water balloons out the window, and it's like, actually that doesn't make the race fun. That actually does not make the race fun, believe it or not. And so I do think fundamentally, like if Cube Draft didn't involve determining winners and losers, it would not be a good game. We wouldn't be playing it. So like it does fundamentally matter. The question is, how do you like make it matter in the right ways instead of in ways that make people feel like it's a reflection on them instead of just like a night of playing a game,
That's a good reframing. I like that.
You wrote something down, Bones.
Don't worry about it.
Is it for later?
I was thinking back to the Cube Draft you really enjoyed where you were delirious.
Yeah.
And your friends were delirious after a long day. Cade and I drafted after judging at CubeCon for a long day, and we're playing a bar cube, 4 people in the pod, and it's like draft 4 little packs or 5 packs, something like that. And
it's 5 packs of 9.
5 packs of 9. And I pass a pack to the right. We're in like pack 2 or 3. Pass it back to the right. It doesn't matter.
I was about to say, it sounds like you're in pack 2 unless you're cheating.
We pass a pack a direction that doesn't matter. And I'm going to say right for the purposes of this story.
Specificity is the soul of narrative.
Thank you. And then I receive a pack from the right. And I'm like, what? And I look at Cade, and Cade has 1 pack left. And everybody else has more than 1 pack left. And Cade has just gone into the next pack while waiting to receive a pack and passed it the correct direction in the future. And is just deliriously like looking at cards and taking cards and passing them around. And we somehow successfully completed that draft. But yeah, deliriousness is an ingredient that can be used to make games of Magic more interesting and make winning less important.
Maybe there's more to it than this. Maybe there's something to do with like literal brain chemistry or just like feeling goofy if you're like super tired. I think it's genuinely that people are able to like say, I'm not at my best, so like this performance doesn't matter, so therefore I'm just playing for fun. If you could just do that without being deliriously tired, I think you'd be a happier drafter and your play group would be better off, right?
Yeah. I'm reminded of something I've heard many times from guests on the interview show. Shout out. And
we don't shout out on this podcast.
Why not?
I think that show is so stupid, but go ahead. Matthew, I'm going to need you to put censor bleeps over the name of the show and the name of the interviewer so no one knows what we're talking about. It's very important to me.
Anyway, all the guests are like, by wing 8, which is the bomb beyond insanity and is awful, they can't answer. And then at wing 9, which is still very spicy, but it's not like battery acid, which is what the bomb tastes like. Then they're like...
That hot sauce, the bomb, actually just tastes awful.
Yes,
like,
it is not good.
Like, I like spicy food, and I will do a little crazy hot sauce every now and then. I don't like one that is just designed to harm me.
It's a prank.
Well, but the thing is, like, it's not even that spicy. It just tastes like car tires.
It just tastes bad.
Awful.
Right.
It's disgusting.
Wait, which part of the car does it taste like?
That's the bit.
Battery?
It tastes like some part of a car. Like your wings should. And by wing 9, many of the guests will be like, this show is incredible. I feel insane, and I'm happy, and I'm like willing to say anything, and I feel like we're brothers now. And I think that there's a point that you can get to mentally from delirium or from hot sauce where you can like kind of ascend to, it just breaks your normal mode of operation, and you're into a new...
Is this why people like to drink?
Maybe.
But the way we're describing this, it sounds like this is what people like to drink because it like makes you not self-conscious. You like lose that sort of like self-censorship.
Inhibition.
You use the inhibition that is like actually preventing you from being your truest self because you're worried about how you might be perceived. And then all of a sudden you unlock that by slightly poisoning yourself just a little bit of poison, and you feel funny.
Anyway, that's what you reminded me of because I watch all the time, unlike you apparently.
More censorship bleeps here.
It'll be so funny that those will be bleeped out, but then we'll be talking about the 8th and 9th wing. So you can decide what spicy hot sauce chicken wing interview show that Bones is talking about.
I got extremely specific, so the real ones will know.
I guarantee there are probably like 10 others at this point because I'm sure it's been aped a million times.
Andy, I have to admit that since we've been talking about this, I kind of had this sense of what I was going to be thinking about or the things I wanted to say. But what you just said there a moment ago about making results matter in the right way has like flipped everything I was thinking on its head already. So hopefully I can admit that I'm learning from this and I'm thinking through this, and it's not just like me trying to regurgitate ideas for other people. But like I think that's so helpful to then to think about. It's not that it shouldn't matter or that it doesn't matter, but that it matters correctly. That's like the proper weight for those things.
Yeah, and it's hard because a lot of players bring a lot to the table. I've said this before. I've seen so many Magic players in our local play group that shout out to them. But like people that have way too much invested in this game for one reason or another, right? And in some cases, it's like, look, somebody's got a rough life, right? Maybe their job sucks and, they just don't have a great social circle. And so, like, Magic is their one thing, right? And so for that person to have their, like, one cube night go bad, it's like, well, this was the one thing I was looking forward to all week, and now it's, like, ruined, right? And so, like, they just bring so much more to the table than, honestly, any of us ever should could sort of put into, like, the outcome of a game. And so it's hard because everyone brings their own baggage, their own sort of expectations, and you can never create a context where you guarantee like nobody's going to feel bad, based on the outcomes of a game. But I do think like to make it feel like a fun, playful spirit of competition instead of a like zero-sum referendum on your value as a person, which everyone's sort of impressions at the end of a Magic match is like somewhere between that scale, right? Somewhere you're like, that was just fun and playful and like it was cool to do, or it's like, I am trash and this thing I spent all these hours on, I'm no good at. Why am I so terrible, right? Like we've all been, I think, probably at different places of that spectrum at the end of a match of Magic.
Well, I think that's so interesting compared to like how many people's experience is largely online now too, between Arena or whatever other version of that, where you're playing against a faceless opponent and your record determines how many gems you may get back. Like, can you even play more if you don't succeed? Or like,
that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I can't speak too much to that economy as much as like that sensibility of my record directly impacts how I get to engage with the game in some cases. So then how differently it should look when, hey, you just get to come in and play and be part of things. Just being counter to that.
I think what you touched on earlier, Bones, is like actually something we should maybe be more explicit about is like just trying to instill a sense of gratitude in everybody that like, hey, you get to come play Magic. And you don't have to bring any cards. And honestly, here's another thing I think about a lot that we don't, it's hard to talk about in the show. I don't know what conversation there is to be had around it, but I think cube designers also hold ourselves to an often much higher bar for like quality of games of Magic than we acknowledge. Like you go back and watch a lot of Pro Tour finals and you're like, those games of Magic sucked. If those games of Magic were from my cube, I'd be like, I've done terribly. Those were not interactive. There wasn't like, back and forth. Same goes for Retail Limited, right? Like I think you also end up playing some of the best Magic, even if, a cube designer might be really critical of themselves afterwards or be like, oh, that card was like too good or whatever. That deck is like, underpowered and kind of a trap. Like you might feel that way, but like that's Magic. Like Magic is a game of high variance. And I think the fact that we should just have gratitude for like getting to be here and play the best format and like recognizing how awesome it is to be able to sit down and draft a novel limited environment, like trying to get people to sort of see that and not take it for granted is maybe one step closer to like just appreciating this. You don't have to drop gems to be here to like play this cube draft with us, which is a gift.
Since Anthony's not here, I'm going to make a food reference. If people didn't have to eat, people would still pay to have good culinary experiences. They get to like not be hungry whenever they go have a good culinary experience. But if you didn't have to eat at all, you could still enjoy something that was prepared for you, that was made in a certain way with certain elements that had an intention for the audience. And I think that is kind of comparable to Cube or other, any game design that has an audience is like, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And it doesn't have to have an outcome of value for me. I can enjoy the experience as it was cultivated for an audience, and I'll be that audience for this time.
And I'm always one that's happy to embrace the corniness of that. Like whenever I have the opportunity to host people for an event, I'm pretty explicit about that to just say, hey, I'm glad you're here. I know you don't have to be, and I love that you have, that you're even willing to come and entertain this time. So just being verbal about it, if you're comfortable doing so, I think that's been big for me, and I hope helpful for others then to set that tone.
Maybe we need like what's the word? If you have like everybody saying the same like thing at the beginning of the cube night, like a like a mantra or an oath we like restate at the beginning of every cube night. That's just like, I recognize that my presence in this space is a privilege, and getting to draft without throwing away gems is a gift, and I will not be salty. And just like, have everybody in the room like methodically cult-like just repeating this sort of mantra. Maybe we got to start that. That's cool, right?
That's
We're
definitely
getting closer and closer to starting a cult every day on this podcast.
Definitely the vibes we are after. Yeah.
Everyone chanting simultaneously, thank you for the gift of Magic and the gift of Cube while holding hands.
Precisely. I'm embarrassed at how much I'm actually, not that specific thing you just joked about, but like, I wonder, like, yeah, just like you said, making an effort to just say like, thanks for being here. You didn't have to be here. Like, I wonder if saying things that are like obvious and otherwise taken for granted and making an effort to like do that every week can have a big impact.
Yeah, I find that even in like the general sense of like, yay, I'm glad you all are here. I find one of the things that's been most meaningful for me when I've received it and also to give it is to find individuals, to go to that, like different people and just find that quiet moment to say, hey, Andy, I'm glad you're here. Bones, I'm glad, I'm glad you're here. Because then it's less about kind of the invitation to everyone is the invitation to no one kind of idea. It's like, yes, I'm glad you all are here. But then to be able to make sure that everybody's engaged in that way.
You're practicing your how to win friends and influence people skills.
I guess Dale Carnegie has some. It's kind of a fraught.
Cade,
direction.
You're doing a great job with that, Cade.
Well,
Bleep that name.
It's gonna sound like I called him some awful slur if you bleep it in that context.
Oh, Dale Carnegie.
Oh, that name. I thought you meant bleep Cade when I said Cade twice.
No.
but just the idea of I remember talking with a group not too long ago about like what sorts of things make you feel valued. Like what does it mean for somebody to value? And so much of that is anchored to somebody taking the time to individually connect with you in whatever context or to remember things about you. Like name is a good one, but just being willing to take a moment and validate someone's presence there, it goes a long way.
Does anybody have any closing thoughts on making a Magic experience, a cube experience, helping to influence people to care about the right kinds of results or care about results in the right way?
Here I am again, writing down things that Bones said. You were talking about the value
This
of...
is a neat trick you do, by the way. We get Kate to say all your smart stuff for you. You get to sit there. You get to sit there quietly.
We were talking about kind of playtesting also, because that was something else we had chewed on a little bit, but how you want feelings over apathy. That you would rather people feel strongly in some cases one way or another rather than like, oh, we're just here coasting through the evening. So, whatever effort you can make to that end. I don't know if that's worth exploring. We were thinking something about that too.
I'm just quoting Mark Rosewater again. And it's the worst playtest outcome is apathy. You want people to react poorly and say, I did not enjoy that. I don't want to do anything like that. Or well and say, that was fun. I want more of that.
See, that's interesting because I think Mark Rosewater is talking about that in the context of the playtest, which is very different than a product you're actually selling.
It is, but I mean, we don't finish our cubes, right? So if we get feedback...
Speak for yourself.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All mine are perfectly finished gems that will never need any modification.
Okay, yeah, I'll never look at the Ornithopters blog again. It's never going to change. And
no, we never finish our cubes. You're right.
And so if people are like, I did not like that. Like, this is feedback we can take in. But if people are like, I wouldn't really draft that cube again. That's not feedback that you can use. It's like, oh, okay, so what did I do wrong?
My feedback is don't talk to you about feedback ever again.
Fine, I guess. Like, that's the worst. That's what he's saying, is that you want people to have strong reactions one way or another because it's more actionable, I think.
That is certainly, I think, very true when you're in the design process and you're specifically like seeking feedback, which we all are for our cubes at all times, basically, right. To your point. But I do think that raises a good point that, like, as a cube designer, you maybe should be conscious of the fact that your goals as a cube designer for what you want to get out of an evening might be in conflict with the goals of hosting a universally beloved cube night for all players, right? And maybe what you want to do is learn, like, well, if I fill my cube with, 16 copies of Wasteland, like, what are the outcomes of that?
I was going to say Stone Rain.
Yeah, sure. 16 Stone Rains, whatever. Like,
why would you pay for Stone Rain? It's right there.
Yeah, maybe you have an idea of, like, well, I want to try this out. I would learn a lot as a designer if I did this experiment, but, need to have a little bit of, like, there needs to be like a IRB, basically, to, like, review your proposed cube design changes and make sure that your test subjects are being treated ethically and morally. I do think there's a different sets of goals. So I will say that, obviously I think Wizards of the Coast has taken the sort of line that they don't mind making people very angry with their releases as long as some of the people are very happy about it. So
yeah, I mean, we should only take so much lesson from people inside, but Rosewater has been at it for a long time, since before the goals changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I want to be careful that it's not like you should have a polarizing experience as much as that it's a meaningful enough experience that somebody has a feeling about it, I guess.
That's how I feel a lot about making this show. Like, I think one of the classic conflicts between Anthony and I is my desire to say a thing and Anthony's desire to say, well, it could be both ways. And it's like, I know you're right and I agree with you fundamentally, but the point of the podcast is to say things so people can feel things about them, right? Like, I don't think it's particularly interesting to be like, the topic this week is X and it could be that way, it could be all kinds of things, I love that dynamic between Anthony and I. Like, to be clear, like, this is not a criticism of Anthony in the slightest. Like, I think it is really beautiful that he plays that role and I think people love him for it. But I also think that the only reason to make a show is to say something, right?
People be saying things so definitively, like, man, I think it depends.
Should we close out with Bones Judge Corner, the stories from head judging this past weekend's event, Cube for a Cause?
Sure.
Because I was in the booth all weekend. I have barely talked to you about your experience. I think you relayed half an anecdote to me. So how did judging this particular event go for you?
It went very well. We had some firsts. I got to do an investigation into somebody potentially cheating, which turned out to not be cheating. Love that.
Which I think is to be expected at a CUBE event. It'd be really weird to find out someone was cheating at an event like this.
Yeah, and like I said, it was the first one to even come up that I would need to do this kind of thing, and I was kind of surprised. Both players, one was in the top 8, one was near the top 8, so I could kind of see it. I was like, okay, maybe.
The signs were there.
All the ingredients were in the kitchen, but it was explained. It was fine. It wasn't cheating, so that was good. Specific examples. Are you ready?
Specificity is the soul of narrative.
Okay. We had a call about Claim the Firstborn, with a creature bestowed on the target of Claim the Firstborn. They want to sacrifice the creature after claiming it. Where is the bestow creature?
Yeah, so just to clarify for those listening, bestow is the ability from Theros where you can basically play a creature as an aura. But importantly, with bestow, unlike a regular aura, is if your target is removed in response to your attempting to bestow it, or if the creature just dies, you get the aura on its creature side basically as a reward.
The aura becomes a creature.
Yeah, it becomes a creature. So the question is, I'm taking control of the creature with Claim the Firstborn. My assumption, unless you're going to tell me that part of Bestow's text is enchant creature you control. My assumption is that because you control the creature but not the enchantment on it, that it's going to go into play under your opponent's control.
Correct, yeah.
Woo!
That was a softball to get us started.
That was a softball? it still felt kind of hard.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, great. I got that one.
And also, the creature does not enter because it is already on the battlefield.
Yeah, it just becomes a creature.
Okay, cool.
But like because you take the creature with the aura on it to your side of the battlefield,
It feels weird, yeah.
In paper, it feels weird to then give them back the
You got to
aura.
remember you don't control that aura.
Yeah, exactly. We also had a thing with Contagion Engine, which puts a minus counter on all your opponent's creatures, and then it has the ability to proliferate twice.
Mm-hmm.
The player is asking me what happens if they activate it, proliferating twice, when the opponent has a 4-mana artifact creature and a Scrap Trawler. And Scrap Trawler says when it or another artifact goes to your graveyard, you can get a cheaper artifact out of your graveyard back into your hand. And so...
Oh, they have -1/-1 counters on them.
Because of the engine, yeah.
Okay, that's an important...
They each have a minus counter on them from the engine.
Uh-huh.
And they want to know if they activate the engine right now and they proliferate twice, are they going to get back the Scrap Trawler?
My guess there... Is this what you were envisioning, me guessing how these rulings play out?
I'm
Is
enjoying
this
it.
what you wanted? I'm enjoying it.
I can just tell you, or you can have fun.
My understanding there is that the ability is going to resolve before any state is checked. And so you're going to proliferate twice. And then after that happens, state is checked. And anything that would go to the graveyard is sent to the graveyard. And therefore you would get triggers from both of the things.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Great. Am I judge yet?
You're not. What I didn't tell them...
I'm getting your badge ready. Hold on.
What I didn't tell them was that you don't have to proliferate everything with a counter on it. You get to
Yes.
choose. So they could just kill the Scrap Trawler by itself and
Yeah.
then kill the other thing later.
Yeah. Which cube had Contagion Engine in it?
I believe it was the Ethereum Landscape.
Okay. That's the Desert Cube.
The Desert Cube. with an
Esper Desert
artifact thing.
Cube?
Yeah, Gabor's.
Shout out Gabor.
Shout out Gabor. Gabor's a great people.
Do you know Nexus of Becoming?
I do because I was playing with it. No, I was watching people play with it on coverage. This is the 6-mana artifact that says at the beginning of combat you may draw a card, and then you can put a creature into play as a 3/3 with the same rules text that it otherwise would have.
3/3 Golem.
A creature or artifact into play, importantly.
Yes, as a
because you
3/3
can put non-creature artifacts into play, and that non-creature artifact then becomes a 3/3 golem.
Mm-hmm. So they want to put Duplicant into play.
Mm-hmm.
And Duplicant has an imprint ability.
Yep.
When it enters, it exiles a creature.
Yep.
And then it has a static ability that says Duplicant, as long as there's a card exiled with Duplicant, the last one exiled with Duplicant is going to give Duplicant its power and toughness and its creature types.
And it's also randomly a 2/4. I guess so if you want to play
Yes.
it without exiling anything, or if the thing gets ingested, even though ingest didn't exist when Duplicant was printed.
Spoilers.
So the player wants to know, if I put in Duplicant, what's it going to look like after it eats something?
I'm going to guess that it's still going to have the power and toughness of the imprinted card, because that sounds like a static ability on the Duplicant that just keeps getting checked. I think I probably worded the reason why wrong, but that is essentially the nut of it.
It's going to enter as a 3/3 Golem because of Nexus of Becoming. And then there's a trigger on the stack.
Yep.
The trigger from it imprinting something off the battlefield is then going to overwrite the 3/3 Golemness.
Sure, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
going to get the creature types and the power and toughness from its ability. And after I explained all of that, and they put a target on the stack, the opponent sacrificed it, and it didn't matter.
It's pretty good.
So they had a 3/3 Golem Duplicant.
There was a tricky thing, actually, which I thought about mentioning this, but I didn't want to like interfere as the coverage booth with the feature match area, but we saw quite a few times, unfortunately, the player playing Nexus of Becoming making mistakes, putting the indestructible artifact dual lands into play as 3/3s, but untapped. And they would come into play
they
tapped,
intertapped.
obviously,
Yeah.
because that is just part of the rule text of the card. It doesn't lose abilities. It comes into play as a 3/3 golem with its abilities. And
That's
so
right.
those are coming to play untapped, and it did matter for the outcome. But, you know, what are you going to do?
I don't like that.
Yeah. Magic's complicated.
I'm going to bend time to go backwards and address that. Okay. You know Monument to Endurance?
This is the one with like 3 abilities, and one of them involves discarding a card. People play it in like discard matters packages.
Yeah, it's a 3-mana artifact. Whenever you discard a card, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn.
Right. Okay, sure. Yeah, I kind of got there.
You're right.
It's a triggered ability, not an activated ability, and it doesn't matter, but discard by discarding.
You
Sure.
draw a card, or the opponent loses 3 life, or you make a treasure.
Okay,
Choose one that hasn't been chosen.
sure.
So the player is activating their Bomat Courier with a bunch of cards under it.
Uh-huh.
They're discarding a card with Madness.
Uh-huh.
And they need the treasure from the Monument to Endurance trigger to cast the card with Madness. Can they?
The exact wording is maybe discard a card, not maybe discard 1 or more.
Yeah.
So they're going to get discard triggers for how many cards are in their hand. So they get all 3 triggers for the Monument Endurance. But the discarding for Madness is a replacement effect or something that happens when you discard it.
Replacement effect puts it into exile instead of your graveyard.
Puts
That's
it to
correct.
exile. And the question is, you have to then immediately cast it before any of the things that you would get from triggers would happen. I'm going to guess you cannot get a treasure to pay the Madness for some madness spell in this context.
It's a triggered ability, so you can.
It's a triggered ability. So, madness is a triggered ability.
Madness
it's not
is-
a replacement effect.
It's both. You discard it into exile instead of your graveyard, and then it creates a trigger where it says you may cast this card if you don't put it in your graveyard.
Oh, so then you can just stack them so that you can. Okay, it is a triggered ability. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. As soon as I said triggered ability, I knew you would know.
That's why I'm not a judge.
I'm sorry.
I'll put the badge away.
Then the badge goes back in the box for a whole another year.
There's also, this is the last one, Glacial Dragon Hunt has harmonized. Do you know this card?
I do.
This feels like a card you would really like.
It's the red-blue card you draw and discard, and if you discard a non-land, you deal damage equal to its mana value to target creature.
No. You deal 3 damage to target creature.
Just 3.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the mana value of the card. You can discard anything you want.
You may be thinking of the harmonize power reducing the cost of harmonizing.
Okay, so it's always 3 damage.
It's always 3 damage.
Doesn't matter where you discard either.
Correct.
Okay.
You may also be thinking of Narset.
There's definitely another spell that does the thing I just said. I forget what it is.
Hypothesizzle.
Is that what it is? Okay, but that's a 5 mana one.
Oh, maybe 4 damage.
I think it's just 4 damage. Anyway,
The player is harmonizing Glacial Dragon Hunt in another graveyard. The opponent is asking me, what's going to happen if I Aven Interrupter their Glacial Dragon Hunt being harmonized?
an Aven Interrupter is the 3 mana card with flash that says
When it
exile
enters-
spell on the stack, and then it can be cast later, but for 2 more mana or something.
Exile target spell. It becomes plotted. And then
Becomes
a
plotted.
separate line. Spells your opponent's cast from graveyards or exile cost 2 more to cast.
And if it's plotted,
It costs
it
0.
only costs 0,
normally.
so you just have to pay 2 to cast it again.
Correct.
Harmonize, I assume, has the same text as Flashback, which doesn't be able to go anywhere,
Except exile.
but it is going into exile. So this is probably one of those weird situations where that actually does work, and it is going to be an exile plotted, and then when it comes off of plot, it just goes to the graveyard normally.
That's right.
Yeah.
It actually kind of helps them.
Yeah, a little bit. They get to keep on Glacial Dragon hunting.
Yeah.
So that's probably not a thing you want to do,
That's right.
opponent.
Good job, Andy.
All but one. Damn you, madness!
This part of the conversation is reminding me how hard it is to maintain a cards mentioned page.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew.
I'm going to say a few more card names for fun.
Really hard ones. I feel like a sense of contact joy from how much joy you get from fielding weird judge calls at Cube events, because
It's very fun.
these are much more interesting judge calls than I imagine you get at like a standard or whatever
Yeah,
constructed event where it's
for
like the
sure.
same things, the same interactions that have been played out 1,000 times, where you're like, yeah, no one's ever even interrupted a Glacial Dragon hunt before.
Yeah, and those cards are both in standard.
A bad example then.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Even
those
though they're
cards
in
are both
standard,
in the same standard.
They're just not playable.
But
in
there's only
constructed
like
standard.
there are only 60 cards not soft banned from standard because you have to be playing those cards not to be run over.
Yeah. How many judge calls about humility?
0.
0 humility judge calls this weekend? So the players were
0.
just getting it wrong and just playing through it.
Oh, I took it out of the box.
I know you didn't do that
This
because
is
it was in our feature drafters deck
It's in my pocket all weekend.
on coverage. Yeah, I appreciated sort of just a shout out to the Cube REL mentality. You came up to me after the draft, the first draft of the weekend, and showed me the Sylvan Library and the Neoclassical Cube and said, they're supposed to play it like this? And I said, yep, because that card is trashed. It's got like a sizable hole coming out of the side of it now, and also more notably, it's just so much thinner. Like, it's like lacking mass somehow. I don't know where it all went. I think it must have gotten wet and then dry and then wet and then dry and then wet and then dry again or something in some combination that caused it to fundamentally alter its chemistry, but that card does not feel right. It's weird.
We had some help from a judge, Vona, shout out Vona, who doesn't normally work Cube events or has only worked Cube.
It was like, what are we doing here?
I can't remember exactly, but I know Vona like normally works competitive events and was like, what are we going to do about this? And I was like,
Did they not see all the other marked cards?
I was like, let's go ask Andy. And you said what you just said. And I was like, we're just playing it like it is. And Vona's like, I was hoping that was going to be the answer.
nice.
And also-
shout out to Vona.
Can this cube be on coverage, please?
Nice. Yeah, it was on coverage, and there was one moment on coverage where I was like, and after that deck cut, I can tell that is Enlightened Tutor on top of the deck. I'm sorry to say, I know exactly what that card is. It did happen.
I did tell the player, I was like, it would be very cool of you if you know what your top card is to tell your opponent, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things I loved about that experience that kind of links to what we were talking about. How the thought was, yeah, you could potentially gain an advantage if you know this here, but like maybe just don't. Like just play ethically here.
As much as possible, I try to avoid cards that are so uniquely marred that you like can't help but pick up on it. Like, I really need to replace the Sylvan Library, to be honest. Like, it doesn't quite fit my current standards for what I want the backup cards to look like. The Enlightened Tutor is also uniquely trashed. For the most part, it's like they're all trashed. And if you're not trying, I want it to be like pretty darn hard to just accidentally pick up on what the sort of wear patterns on the back of the cards are, to like give people the benefit of the doubt and make it so that if you are just kind of playing normally, you're just not going to pick up on it. But I had to cut the memory jar that I had in that cube for a while and replace it with another one because that one was missing a corner. And it's like, yeah, the card missing a corner is memory jar. So
I spend most of these cube event weekends fanning 5 cards out at a time to count cubes back in.
Yep.
And I'm having trouble fanning the cards in Neoclassical these days. They're getting pretty grimy.
I have to do a cleaning session. People don't realize that, if you don't have sleeves in your cards, you got to clean them. I sit down with I don't even know what it's made of. The little like disc of, I guess, cotton or synthetic fiber that is used as like a nail polish removing disc or like a makeup removing pad.
Neat.
Like that kind of pad is really good for just like scrubbing away grime on cards. I do that for a couple hours and I have a stack of disgusting grimy makeup cleaning pads at the end. It's so much gunk.
Yeah, when people talk about maintaining their cube, that's not usually what I think they refer to.
No, it's an important part of the job though when you play an unsleeved cube. On that bombshell, that's going to be the end of this episode of Lucky Paper Radio. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you want to support the show on Patreon, you can find a link to the Patreon in the show notes, where that also gives you access to a bonus podcast called Magic Doesn't Exist, which there'll be more episodes of soon. My Magic Doesn't Exist co-host is currently ill, but they'll come out as they come out. You'll get them when you get them. And that's where Anthony and I talk about anything we want, as long as it has nothing to do with Magic the Gathering. There's a lot of subjects under that umbrella for us to cover. The music for this show is produced by DJ James Nasty, and the show is edited by Matthew. All the Magic cards are produced by Wizards of the Coast, and this podcast is produced by thinking really hard about Magic cards and then speaking into microphones about it. Kate and Bones, thank you so much for doing your best to fill the huge shoes of Anthony collaboratively. I feel like Bones is standing in the left shoe, you're standing in the right shoe. You respectfully are barely getting there. Anthony's a titan, so it's good to have you both in the studio to try and make up for his absence.
We greatly miss our big shoed brother, and we wish him the very best in his recovery. I'm sorry he couldn't be here, but this is a delight, Andy. Thank you for welcoming us into your studio.
Into the basement.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you for the gift of friendship.
And for the gift of cube.
Did I say that, or did I not say that? I didn't say it?
If you don't feel it, you don't have to say it.
No, I do.